Okay, apologies once again for the interruption. We're going to go back to our top story today. The Russian and Turkish leaders addressing the media after talks on that settlement for Syria's Idlib province. Let's listen in.
We've had very constructive talks with Mr. Erdoğan. This has been our fourth meeting this year. As you may know, just around 10 days ago, we've participated in the Russian-Turkish Iranian summit in Tehran. When discussing the current issues of Russia-Turkey cooperation, we've observed a considerable growth in mutual trade. Over the past 7 months, the growth has been 34%, and now it's over $15 billion. And over the past year, the increase was about 40%. In many respects, this was thanks to the agreements we've reached during our 7th meeting on cooperation on the higher level between our ministries. Russia has lifted some restrictions on agricultural products exported from Turkey and have created conditions, favorable conditions for Russian products to be delivered to Turkey. Our cooperation is boosted by the increase of the share of our national currencies in our trade, and we believe that this will allow us to minimize certain negative aspects, negative factors of our trade. We will continue to help Turkey in their nuclear energy with the Akuyu nuclear plant. And we will, when discussing humanitarian issues, we have discussed the preparations for the cross-cultural years for culture and tourism in 2019. Last year, a record number of Russians have visited Turkey as tourists, 4.7 million people, and Russia's tourists are the #1 tourists by quantity in Turkey. The quantity of tourists, the amount of tourists rose by 40%, and our priority, of course, is maintaining safe and favorable conditions for Russians to stay in Turkey. Colleagues, today we have talked a lot about the situation in Syria. Russia and Turkey are cooperating on resolving the crisis in this country. We are making efforts to stop hostilities, to improve the humanitarian situation in Syria. We focused on the issues around Idlib, and in Idlib we talked about the militants there and their infrastructure. During our talks today, we have been able to achieve some serious results, some serious progress in resolving this issue. And now we can move forward to coordinated actions. Russia's concerns as a country that was one of the countries that created the de-escalation zone was that there are threats right now being created by the militants there in the province of Aleppo. The threats aimed at our military objects in Syria, such as Tartus and the Khmeimim airfield. During our meeting, we have talked about this situation, and we have decided to create to create by the 15th of October this year, to create a demilitarized zone of 15 to 20 kilometers between the territories controlled by the militaries and the territories controlled by the Syrian government. And we're hoping to move militants, including the Al-Nusra Front militants, to move them away from the zone. We are also hoping to remove from the area heavy military equipment. We have agreed to organize patrols in the area to restore transit between Aleppo, Latakia, and Aleppo and Hama. Also, we did this at the proposal of our Turkish counterparts. Russia and Turkey have reiterated their desire to fight terrorism in Syria in any of its forms. We believe that all this will give a new impetus to the resolution of the Syrian conflict, and will allow us to boost our work on the Geneva platform. This approach is supported by the government of the Syrian Arab Republic, with which we will soon hold additional talks. It is important to say that both Russia and Turkey are planning to continue to use the Astana format to find long-term political solutions in Geneva under the aegis of the UN. We will continue to work on forming the Constitutional Committee, which will consist of the government, the opposition forces, and the civil society. It is planned to be launched in the nearest future, and I would like to thank Mr. Erdoğan and all of our Turkish colleagues for today's work, which was very constructive. Thank you.
Değerli dostum Putin, kıymetli
My dear friend, President Putin, dear members of the delegation, dear members of the press corps, greetings to you all from the depth of my heart. Once again, I would like to convey to you that I'm happy to be in Russia. I would like to express my gratitude primarily to President Putin and all of our Russian friends for their hospitality. My dear friend has already told you that we are meeting for the fourth time this year. As you know, we also often speak on the phone with President Putin to exchange opinions on various issues. Our cooperation has been developing and getting stronger based on mutual understanding and common interest. In the area of economic cooperation, our turnover has increased compared to last year, when it grew by 31%. This year it has grown 31%. Together with President Putin, we have set up construction of the Akuyu nuclear power plant and the Turkish Stream gas pipeline. In 2019, we will have a cross-cultural and tourism year, and we're continuing to work on that. This year, same as last year, Russian tourists will make up the biggest group of foreign tourists in Turkey. Last year, they made up 4.7 million people, and we suppose that this year it will hit 6 million. At the same time, we expect that a more liberal visa travel regime will facilitate that, and this work is now being carried on at the level of ministries, and we expect positive results from that. We have also discussed with President Putin the Syrian issue. Last time we discussed it was in Tehran during the tripartite summit. Turkey laid out its position clearly in Tehran. And during today's meeting, we elaborated on how we can put into practice our arrangements that we arrived at in Tehran. During our negotiation, we decided to find a solution while taking into consideration our mutual opinions and interests. And during our meeting today with President Putin, we decided that we need to resolve the issue of Idlib in the spirit of the Astana agreements. The territory controlled by the Syrian opposition must be demilitarized, and armed opposition that is holding these territories will remain there. But together with Russia, we will put our efforts into clearing those territories of radical elements. Russia will do everything in its capacity to that end. At the same time, in order to prevent provocations from third parties or identify provocations from third parties, we will jointly take measures with Russia. Turkey and Russia will coordinate their activities in patrolling those territories. Up to now, in the meantime, Turkey will enhance its observation posts in the de-escalation zone, and therefore we will prevent a humanitarian tragedy that would occur if hostilities were to break out in the Idlib province. Starting from the very beginning of the Syrian crisis, Turkey has done everything it could to avoid civilian casualties, and today's memorandum will help Turkey avoid an even more difficult situation, and it will be a very good result for Russia. During our meeting today, we also arrived at the opinion that terrorist-controlled territories are not limited to the Idlib province. All terrorist groups that are a threat to our country, including the YPG, this is a group that was involved in ethnic cleansing. And this organization is a source of destabilization in the east of Euphrates, and we need to primarily do away with this organization. Same as in the operation the Shield of Euphrates or the Olive Branch. We made a very important step. We liberated an area of 4,000 square kilometers from ISIS and the PKK, and enabled our Syrian brothers to go back to their homes located in that area. We also believe that it is important to similarly rid territories from YPG and PDD, which are also extremist organizations. We believe that both Russia and Turkey want UN Security Council Resolution 2254 to be observed and implemented in the spirit of our cooperation. The war internations of the Astana process met last week in Geneva to assess the Constitution Committee of Syria, and we have given our assessment it is necessary to have a constitutional reform in Syria to be followed by a free and fair election. And after that, the Syrian people will be able to move toward a democracy. We have decided to continue our efforts to promote our relations. Dear members of the press, good neighbor relations, mutual interests and mutual respect are the key elements that define Turkish-Russian relations. Based on that, we have made many steps already, but it is not enough so far. In order to promote our cooperation, we need to continue moving in this direction. I would like to express my gratitude to my friend, Mr. Putin, for the hospitality shown to me and my delegation. Thank you. And the steps we agreed on today, I believe that they will be helpful and they will be to the benefit of the people of Syria. Thank you.
Following
the results of the talks between Mr. Putin and Mr. Erdoğan, the Defense Minister of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, and Minister of National Defense of Turkey, Hulusi Akar, have signed a memorandum on the stabilization of situation in the Idlib de-escalation zone.
Türkiye Cumhuriyeti Cumhurbaşkanı Sayın Recep Tayyip Erdoğan ve Rusya Federasyonu Devlet Başkanı Sayın Vladimir Putin görüşmelerinin ardından Türkiye Cumhuriyeti Milli Savunma Bakanı Sayın Hulusi Akar ve Rusya Federasyonu Savunma Bakanı Sergey Shoigu tarafından İdlib gerginliğin azaltılması bölgesindeki durumun istikrarlaştırılmasına ilişkin mutabakat zaptı imzalanmıştır.
Okay, that was the presidents of Russia and Turkey summing up their talks on the Syria issue. Mr. Putin making it clear that there have been some positive results, some progress in resolving that issue, both agreeing on a demilitarized zone between the Syrian government and militants in the area, the withdrawal, they say, of heavy equipment from the front line to a 15-kilometer distance, observation of UN Resolution 2254, as well as a row of other agreements as well. Marina Kostyeva is there. She's going to give us some analysis a little later on what that could mean for the wider Syrian talks. Now, of course, the situation is very tense in Idlib province right now. The UN estimates 10,000 al-Qaeda and also terrorists remain in the area, posing a threat not only to those living there, but also to people in bordering regions as well. We earlier spoke to journalist Eva Bartlett, who's recently returned from the country. She told us about the situation in Idlib and Syria as well. Also what the mainstream media are failing to highlight.
There I talked to the the National Defense Forces, and they spoke at length about how the village has been pummeled by missiles from terrorists, and it's been on a daily basis over the past many years. They've said, you know, they've been suffering. Nobody is talking about it, and they're looking forward to the liberation of Idlib because it will ease their suffering. It will mean the cessation of these terrorist attacks on Idlib. So these are the kind of things that the media, which is busy talking about, corporate media, which is busy talking about Idlib, are completely negating happening on a daily basis in Mahardeh. What Syrians I've spoken with around the country on previous visits and currently says they want a restoration of all of Syria to peace, and they want an end to the terrorism that's been plaguing them, whether in Idlib or, as we saw formerly, in eastern Ghouta, or before that in Aleppo. And it's their right to live in peace, and it's also their right and the government of Syria's right to fight such terrorism, because we're not talking about the mythical moderate rebels, we're talking about Al-Qaeda. We're talking about Ahrar al-Sham and Jaish al-Islam. And these are terrorists that have been torturing civilians and executing civilians wherever they happen to occupy. Well, the Syrian and Russian governments have been using tools of diplomacy. If you'll recall, they've opened humanitarian corridors, they've offered amnesty and reconciliation to terrorists who will lay down their weapons. But on the contrary, it's these factions within the Idlib that are saying, we will kill any terrorists, well, militants, rebels, if they, whatever they want to call them, we will kill them if they participate in amnesty and reconciliation. So clearly, yes, there is a desire for a peaceful resolution to this, and the Syrian and Russian governments have been offering tools for such a peaceful resolution.
Okay, back to our top story on that press conference just now by Presidents Putin and Erdoğan of Russia and Turkey on those Syria negotiations. Let's go live to Medina Kocinova. She's been across the story in Sochi for us. It seemed fairly positive. It seems like a diplomatic breakthrough has been made of some sort at least. Just talk us through some of the things they said.
Exactly, a diplomatic breakthrough, that what it is. Now, finally, after it's been really a very long period of negotiations. Now, we've been waiting here for hours. Journalists waited in the press conference room for over 3 hours for the press conference to finally start. And now, finally, we know the results. It really seems that both sides have finally not really came to a full-scale agreement, but it is more of a compromise between the two sides. Now, the Russian president said that they were able to achieve progress and that serious decisions were made. And in particular, the president said that they agreed to create a demilitarized zone of around 15 to 20 kilometers by the 15th of October. The president said that they hope that they will be able to move militants from al-Nusra away from the area. He once again stressed Russian position on the matter. He said that the terrorist presence in the province of Idlib poses a danger to the whole region. Now, the Russian president also said that they have agreed to remove heavy military equipment from the zone, have agreed to organize patrols in the area and to restore transport. Vladimir Putin believes that all this will give a new impulse to the resolution of the crisis in Syria, especially surrounding the area of Idlib. And he also mentioned that this approach that they just voiced at the press conference was supported by the Syrian government. He mentioned that there's going to be talks with the Syrian government very soon on the results of this particular meeting between the Russian and the Turkish presidents. And the Turkish president also supported everything that was mentioned by Vladimir Putin, and he said that he believes that together with Russia they will put their efforts to clear the region from the terrorist threat. So again, very important talks took place here in Sochi, and really it lasted for so long, and finally we know the results.
Okay, Medina Kocinova there in Sochi talking us through the highlights of that Putin-Erdoğan press conference on Syria. Thanks for that, Medina.